Well, looks like it's time to talk about Sonic Superstars. And guys, I don't know what it is, but as the years progress, somehow the Sonic fandom never disappoints when it comes to causing an uproar, making a scene, and just completely overblowing things. Okay, so people, let's unclench our fists for a moment, use our indoor voice, and take a moment to relax and talk level-headedly about this game. Sonic Superstars is the first 2D Sonic game to be released since Sonic Mania, and honestly, I'm just dumbfounded that somehow, despite the sales and popularity of Sonic Mania, they didn't go for a Sonic Mania 2. Well, there's news out there that explains that there was plans for Sonic Mania 2, but the plans fell through, and exactly how does that happen? Did they forget how to make a direct sequel? I get that Sonic Team didn't exactly work on it, but they couldn't simply replicate it and add new zones and create new assets and features. That's honestly a little pathetic. But we're not here to talk about a Sonic Mania 2 that never was. We're here to talk about Sonic Superstars that actually exists. And let me tell you, I like this game. I love this game, and yes, I do have problems with this game. But overall, Sonic Superstars has gotten so much hate since its release that I almost knew that it had to be good, because that's how it is in the Sonic fandom. There's maniacs that tear apart a game like Shadow the Hedgehog a decade ago, and are now on YouTube and online forums praising it like a holy relic. Now, the first thing that caught my attention besides this being an all-new 2D Sonic game was the return of Fang, or as I preferred to call him, Knack the Weasel. This guy went missing for decades until he reappeared as an illusion in Sonic Mania. Now, Fang, the actual Fang, is back in his most prominent role since Sonic Triple Trouble. So Fang never actually appeared as an antagonist in any mainline Sonic games. It's actually pretty crazy. It's not like the Sonic enemy list in the games is a mile long. So Fang should have been reintroduced years ago. Eggman has enlisted his help along with a new character, Trip, who helps capture a bunch of total chunguses. These animals are fucking huge. And he's going to use them to create new badniks, which end up being the mini-bosses. So Sonic Superstars finally sees Amy brought back as a playable character after years of being lost in obscurity, much like Knuckles, as a background character. Well, Frontiers DLC made her playable as well, and so did Origins after fan backlash, so there's that. And we finally got Amy established as the main character once again, and I'm not sure why this was such an uphill battle. Somewhere after Sonic Heroes, Sonic Team said, fuck all these playable characters, and started really condensing this level of choices down to the bare fucking minimum, where Sonic Unleashed, Colors, Generations, and Lost World all featured Sonic as the only playable character. And to add on to this, we've got Tails and Knuckles, and when you beat the main story, you get to play as Trip, who eventually turns on Eggman. So we've got a beautiful animated opening cutscene and 11 new zones to play through, and the physics and gameplay are very much akin to the classic series style. And while it's not exactly the same exact feel, it's pretty damn close, and I'm very happy with that. The drop dash is here, Knuckles glides, Amy has a double jump and a hammer attack, and Tails, of course, flies. Once you unlock Trip, you not only get a double jump, but can cling to walls much like the Spike's Wisp ability in Sonic Colors, and you'll need all the help you can get because Trip's story is the hard mode of this game, and it'll kick your fucking ass. Also, Egg Robo will replace Eggman in boss fights just like it did for Knuckles' playthrough in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's pretty monumental that we have a new playable character for the first time since Styx in Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal. Damn, that's a long time. We're long overdue for a new playable character. The Chaos Emeralds actually grant you special abilities besides turning super, and guess what? If you're not playing as Sonic or Trip, prepare to be disappointed because Knuckles, Tails, and Amy all get the short end of the stick. I'm sorry, but this is not Super Knuckles. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. This is super powers, not a true super form. I don't get it. We had the proper super forms in Sonic Mania, so why is it so blasé here? At least Trip gets to transform into a cool dragon when you activate the super form for her, so at least there's that. So you have the choice of 7 abilities, one of which is unique to each character, such as Sonic having his homing attack and Trip being able to spit fire. The other abilities can be used by anyone, including the Avatar attack, which fills the screen with multiple clones that fly across the screen, damaging enemies and barriers. You can liquefy yourself to climb waterfalls and swim, and you can use a vine to climb to new heights. So, how do you get the Chaos Emeralds? Well, in the special stages, of course, and you'll access them by finding the giant gold rings throughout the zones. And the special stages aren't bad, they're manageable, and they'll see you swinging from a sea of orbs and avoiding obstacles to catch up to a fleeing Chaos Emerald. Some can be pretty tricky, especially the 5th Emerald, but trust me, it makes Sonic Manias look like a cakewalk. There's bonus stages as well where you can collect medals that you can use to build a robot in battle mode. I really passively collected these and soon started to avoid the portals that appear to take you to the bonus stages, which happens when you reach a checkpoint with 50 rings or more. They're basically upgraded versions of the ones from Sonic 1. They're designed well, but I just don't care about the medals. You can also find big blue rings and you'll play the special stages, but they're replaced with a fleeing medal. Why go through the trouble of playing these just to get 5 medals, which happens when you eventually catch up to the fleeing medal? So the majority of the footage I captured is from the Steam version, and I actually had the depth of field option off, and this actually makes things look exactly like the Switch version. I had no idea that this was the case, and the game has it automatically switched off, and I'm not actually too mad because what it does is blur the backgrounds to give it a lighting effect, and sometimes it actually takes away from the art style. However, sometimes it does benefit the backgrounds, and sometimes it has a very minor effect. This is a very interesting option, so you can toggle between the two and choose what you prefer. So let's take a look at these zones. Bridge Island Zone. Oh my god, holy cannoli. It's not a Green Hill Zone clone. Oh, thank you, Sega Overlords. This is a pretty great zone and a really good first impression for Sonic Superstars. You have classic loops and these launchers, and you can run along these half pipes, which is visually satisfying. The music is really good too and gets you in the right mood, and it even gets better in Act 2. The first mini-boss is a chase sequence, and I really like that you actually have to be on point here. I died quite a few times, and while we're on that note, thankfully lives are a thing of the past. Yep, they're completely removed, and now you don't have to worry about arbitrarily replaying an entire level due to too many slip-ups. The Eggman boss fight is yet another Death Egg robot lookalike, but it's a bit different. Kind of a Sonic Mania callback with Eggman calling in the big guns early. There's also a Fruit Act as well, which are stages that you'll run across a few times that are dedicated to collecting as many rings as possible to earn medals, which I couldn't care less about, as I stated before. Speed Jungle Zone. Well, this zone feels quite different, and I like it. The vine grinding is pretty cool, and I like the overall aesthetic, and even though jungles are no stranger to the Sonic series, this one feels quite different, and we're introduced to character-specific acts here, and everybody gets one, and these are a cool idea. Stages that are only accessible due to the character's unique abilities assigned to them until you unlock Trip, who gets to play through them all. So they're not really that exclusive after that. I love Sonic's act as Fang menaces you throughout the stage, and when you get to this stage with Trip, Fang will introduce an insta-kill laser that will follow you throughout many sections of the stage. As I mentioned before, this is the hard mode of the game, and this stage will really make you feel it. I really love the idea and design of this stage. An enemy that cannot be damaged, and you just have to avoid what he dishes out. I like how Fang is an ever-present threat, and he doesn't just pop up in a mere boss fight, and then the game's done with him. But there's something we're gonna talk about later on that might make you wish you didn't see him later on. So let's put a little post-it note on this one and we'll come right back to it later on. The main boss is a slog, to say the least, and introduces us to the game's biggest problem: prolonged and dragged out boss fights. I mean, good God, just die already. This boss is a pain in the ass and it goes on forever. Sky Temple Zone. Not to be confused with the rumored hidden temple in Ocarina of Time, Sky Temple Zone introduces the one-act zone concept, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's an interesting idea. If Sonic Team has ideas for a zone and they feel it would work better as a single act, it's better that they just do it that way than give us two mediocre half-baked acts. And this is a pretty cool zone with fans blowing you up in the air, and this really reminds me of Sky Canyon Zone from Sonic Advance 2 with a much less steep learning curve. Not really an amazing zone or anything, and I probably would rank this one lower on a tier list, to be honest, of the best stages in the game. And the boss here was a real bitch playing his Trip. Oh my god, this made me almost lose it. It also goes on and on, like I mentioned before. I like the idea of falling down the shaft with Eggman as you avoid his projectiles, but this one overstays its welcome. Pinball Carnival Zone. Well, we all know this is basically this game's version of Casino Night Zone, but with an amusement park overlap. I like the addition of the roller coasters, and some of them even explode if you stay on them too long. And Act 2 goes for a spooky vibe, but I feel they could have done a better job because I like the idea of a haunted carnival or amusement park, but this just falls flat in terms of the vibe. Come on, Sonic Team, you gave us Mystic Mansion and Sonic Hero, so I know you could do better. And in Act 1 as Trip, you're introduced to a very annoying fact. You'll need at least 6 Chaos Emeralds to advance, because you'll need the power of the 6th emerald to slow down time and get past this barrier that's spazzing out. Yes, you actually can't beat Act 2 with Trip unless you've gotten at least 6. Well, shit. That's a pace breaker, and why do this in the middle of a stage? It's like, well, I guess I'm fucked. So at this point, of course, I only had 4 emeralds, so I had to go get the other 2. I didn't like this shit at all as the game's progression came to a grinding halt, as the emeralds were now not only mandatory to see the true ending of the game, but to actually advance in a fucking level that's not even at the end of the game. I do like the design of the Act 2 boss, but it's long as expected. Lagoon City Zone, talk about vibes, especially Act 2 with that smooth as hell music. I have to say, Lagoon City might be one of my all-time favorite water levels in a Sonic game. Now, the Act 2 boss in Trip Story can go straight to hell, as it's a frustrating fight in the second phase with missiles going everywhere, but overall, it's a very satisfying stage with a lot of pathways and a very calming aesthetic. It's truly a masterly crafted zone, and Amy gets her character act where she actually meets up with Trip in the stage and carries her on her back to the end of the stage. And I thought that was really cute and whimsical. I really enjoyed meeting up with another character in a stage and actually helping them out. And it's like one of the first ever Sonic escort missions besides what we saw in Sonic 06 with Elise. Sand Sanctuary Zone. This stage, of course, is very Sandopolis-ish, and I think they could have done more with the snake's body. Like, can you imagine if it was changing shape and coiling as Sonic and company ran along it? It's a pretty solid stage and only one act, but not terribly stimulating. I think this stage could have used a bit more originality, honestly. It's a bit too much like Sandopolis, with Sandopolis being way better. And of course, the boss is dragged out and really not that interesting. Press Factory Zone. Act 1 is a really fantastic stage with awesome music. People are knocking Jun Senyue's contributions to the OST, and there's bangers like this. I'm sorry, but I don't understand the hate. I really love the mechanic of the stage, as the giant press machine in the background will make you jump every time it comes down. I like this gimmick, and I think it's incorporated very well into the level design, and it surprisingly isn't frustrating. And if you think about it, this type of gimmick could have been extremely irritating if it was handled incorrectly, and it thankfully wasn't. And they handled it very well. Act 2 sees a drone overheating in the background, and you need to press switches to keep it cool, and if it does overheat, it's an insta-kill as the stage will start to explode. It's nowhere as good as Act 1, but it's a fun gimmick, and the boss isn't too much of a pain, and it's definitely a quicker fight. Golden Capital Zone. Now, this is just awesome. I love the music and the overall look and feel of this zone, and Knuckles gets his character exclusive act. This stage is like a temple of riches, like a Fort Knox of rings, and it feels very serene, and the music definitely helps with that. There's pinball-like mechanics here, but it feels better than what's in Pinball Carnival Zone, actually. Go figure. I really enjoy the piggy bank themed mini boss in Act 1 that sucks the rings out of you. That's really creative, actually. I thought that this was a really good boss, and you'll face off against Fang in a pretty tough battle. And it's a long one with multiple phases, and if you die, it's back to the beginning of the fight, and that means you'll need to navigate through these obstacle-laden areas with all this fire and lava, and hopefully you hang on to enough rings to help you out here. I'd advise you to use your emerald powers here. Now, remember, how tough this fight is? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet, so hold on to your socks, folks. Cyber Station Zone. Damn, this is a cool stage, and it's one act. It's basically a cyber stage that kind of reminds me of Techno Bass from Sonic Advance 2 and Cybertrack from Advance 3 with the technological vibe. You'll become a digitized version of yourself. A video game version of yourself in a video game? Whoa, dude, you're blowing my mind. You'll become a mouse, a jellyfish, and even a rocket. There's plenty of variety and fun to be had here, and the music rules. The boss is pretty well designed, except it has a fake out second phase, and if you are taken by surprise and die, you'll be sent back to the beginning of the fight. Great. What's interesting is the appearance of the boss will change depending on what parts you build your robot with in battle mode. Well, I don't care about the medals or battle mode, so the boss I fought looked like the Fugitoid from Ninja Turtles, which is the default design. Frozen Base Zone. Well, there's definitely quite a bit of variety, with Act 1 being the outside of the base with a snowy environment and a pain in the ass pterodactyl boss that took me multiple tries on both my main story and Trip's story playthroughs. Act Tails sees Tails making his way through the base in his character exclusive stage, avoiding various hazards. It's a pretty cool stage that takes advantage of his abilities very well. And in Act 2, we're off to the clouds and space in a shooter style minigame. I didn't mind this one act deviation, and it's quite fun for a change of pace. Egg Fortress Zone. You finally made it to Eggman's base of operations, and Act 1 sees you going through this hazard-filled stage in the traditional manner, and in Act 2, you'll go through the entire stage backwards as everything rewinds and deconstructs and reconstructs before your very eyes in what's just visual splendor. This is a really awesome level, and it takes a pretty decent stage and makes it even better with a really cool, unique gimmick. The only thing is, when you come here as Trip, you better have all 7 emeralds, because you'll need to transform into the dragon to fly across a huge chasm, and if you don't have all the emeralds, you might as well quit out of this stage and return later when you get all the emeralds, because you're not going fucking anywhere. So that's just fantastic. Just let me know in the middle of the stage, just like in Pinball Carnival Zone. So when you make it to the final room in the main story, you'll face off against Eggman and yet another Death Egg robot lookalike, and this is a tough, long as hell fight with a false ending, and if you fuck up, it's back to the beginning of the fight, and this is downright brutal. This motherfucker takes a ton of hits to bring down, and the first phase is long enough. And getting into position to hit the blue missile back at Eggman is easier said than done, and once Eggman starts chasing you in the second phase, it gets way tougher and it's very easy to die. But you haven't seen anything yet, because when Trip makes it to the end of the stage, she will confront Fang instead of Eggman in a similar fight, but it's way tougher. Way tougher. And this fight, oh yeah, this fight is fucked. It's fucked beyond belief. This fight is so fucking difficult. Prepare to grow in rage multiple times as you die. Learning his patterns, especially in the second phase, and both phases have insta-kill bullshit, and yup, you guessed it, if you die at any point, it's back to the beginning of the fucking fight. And these webs that can catch you, and he'll shoot you with an insta-kill cork, and bullshit where he slices the ends off the platform you're standing on, and then oh, good, I'm okay. And then fuck! Oh, he does this damn headbutt. Oh, shit. When you finish off Fang the fucker, you'll feel so satisfied. Yeah, that's right. Get fucked, you weasel, jerboa, piece of shit. I'm so happy Fang returned, but damn, his final fight is a bit too much. A bit too much. They really got carried away with this one. And once you complete the main story and Trip story, you'll unlock the final story. And you'll do battle with the true final boss. Yup, there's another one. And this is the true one. This gigantic dragon that takes forever to beat. Yup, another long as hell fight after 2 marathons. And why? Because we have to have our traditional supersonic true final boss fight, of course. Because it wouldn't be a true Sonic game without it. And where did this guy come from exactly? Well, you can see he's illustrated on the walls of the ruins, featured in the Trio of Trouble animated short that's featured on the official Sonic YouTube channel. Okay, so that's a bit odd. He's not seen anywhere else in the game, and you have to watch a short to even get an inkling of an idea who the hell he is. And let me tell you something. Jesus Christ, this is overkill to have this many final bosses. And this boss has so many phases too, and of course, if you die at any point, it's back to the start. But of course, it's hard, and knowing what you're supposed to do and what to hit isn't that evident. Like, I'm supposed to ram him in the chest, but not the face, and I didn't know that I could touch the dragon's claws and damage him after he swipes at me. There's such a small opening to attack them, I would have never guessed. But I actually looked it up online and found out that it is possible. But sometimes it's better to just avoid them altogether because it's really hard to do. A little bit too hard to do if you ask me. And as this fight wears on, you'll notice that there's a severe lack of rings because you're fighting him as Supersonic. And rings decrease, of course, as they traditionally do when you're supersonic, and you have to stop yourself from getting hit long enough to get your friends to drop in to give you a bunch of rings. But it's not even really a lot of rings. You'll burn through rings like there's no tomorrow, especially when you use the dash, which you should only use if you get trapped in one of the vortexes. And then you have this point where the dragon switches to a side-scrolling attack, and then you will sometimes miss out on a ring drop, which is downright infuriating because it actually cancels out your friend's ring drop. And in the final phase, this fucker takes his sweet ass time throwing these asteroids at you. Like, come on, throw them already! And your timing needs to be perfect as it is. And the rings are running down. Oh my god, this fight is severely broken. What in the hell is up with the bosses in this game? This boss is like fucking impossible. It's like it took me so many tries. I don't even understand, like, what were they thinking here? This is beyond going overboard. You know, all they really had to do to make this a better fight was just supply more rings. That's all that it needed. Because if it wasn't for that, I would actually say that this boss isn't half bad. Because the phases of attack are actually fun to do, and there's quite a bit of variety of attacks in this fight. So it's a real shame they had to ruin it because of the way how they handled the rings. This was really fucked up, and I think it's a cheap as hell fight that ends up being a bad one. And look what they did. They took what could have been a relatively good boss fight and they turned it into a total fucking nightmare. So anyway, Sonic Superstars is a really good game and I enjoy it a lot. It is a classic style Sonic game and it has so much to like about it. Some really great level design and a brand new playable character and some really awesome music that's very controversial, but of course it is because it's in the Sonic game after all. But these bosses, especially the final bosses, they're really just big heaps of shit and they're way too much. I mean, they went overboard with these motherfuckers. People are saying that the bosses ruin this game, and I don't think that that's enough to ruin a game. It's bosses. You can do the time attack and you'll be just fine. You won't even have to face the bosses if you do that. Or you can just play up to the bosses and then quit out. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think that we're taking it a bit too far. Yeah, these boss battles are dragged out, they're long, and they're tedious. And they definitely do affect the quality of a game up to a certain extent. A certain extent, not the entire extent of the game, I think that fans have a tendency to go overboard and use hyperbole. And yes, you know that is definitely true. That is something that the Sonic fandom has done for years and years. And it's something that's, quite frankly, very annoying. And they do it a lot when talking about this game. And it's just not applicable. So stop. Please stop. It's not that bad. We have a really good Sonic game here. It's just that the bosses are deeply, deeply flawed. But everything else, besides the bosses, is pretty fucking good. Please, do not miss out on this game because you're listening to the naysayers. The naysayers that are taking things way too far and exaggerating, all because the game has a flaw, as all games do. Yes, it's a big flaw from a certain perspective if you really care about the bosses. But the bosses have never really been a big part of Sonic games in the past, and I don't really know why they're taking it so seriously here all of a sudden. It's almost as if they want this game to be bad, that they wished that this game was bad, and even though it really isn't, they're still going ahead and making it out to be bad anyway. I don't know why, but they just are. And Sonic Superstars has a multiplayer mode, and a lot of people are saying that these zones are designed around the multiplayer feature. But this is just not the case. I don't know where anybody is getting this from, but this is downright false information. This game is not designed around multiplayer at all. In fact, a lot of people are trying to say that this game is flawed due to the level design, but the multiplayer is optional. If you don't like it, don't play it. So I don't understand why people keep going on and on about that. I agree, the multiplayer is not good. It's not enticing at all. So if you don't like it, don't play it. It's as simple as that. People are desperate to find any reason at all to say a Sonic game is bad nowadays, no matter how minor that point may be. Please, do not listen. Do yourself a favor and play this game and decide for yourself, just as you should always do when it comes to any form of media. Play Sonic Superstars for yourself and decide for yourself. And I think you'll thank me for that. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you hate Sonic Superstars? Did you enjoy it? Is it one of your favorite Sonic games of all time or one of your least favorite? I would love to discuss it in the comments down below. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all the notifications when I post on my new videos. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and hit the dislike button if you fucking hated it. And any contributions that you give on Patreon are always greatly appreciated. And thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.